The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Let's talk about this for a little bit. This, I think, you can see lends itself to literal summary. Um, Remember, as you write an interpretive essay, then you need to think of the two sections that go into the essay. The first section being the summary section, where you tell your reader what the story is about on the surface. Now, here you have a lot of stuff to talk about, right? All the different events that he goes through. Each one of those events can probably be handled in one or two sentences, right? Put them together, give the very strange ending where he's so henpecked by his wife that he's imagining himself being shot at the firing squad. Um, uh, and then you also have to tell the audience what you think that the author of this story was actually trying to say with the story. What's really the bigger message here. And so those are the two types of summaries that go into the first part of this essay, the first section. Now, again, that could be, I think it should be at least 2 paragraphs, or 3. Maybe the literal summary would take like 2 paragraphs, and then the in-depth summary, the summary of the larger message, could take like 1 paragraph. I think that's a pretty good plan. That maybe you'd find as you try that, you might need to add another one. That's fine. Don't hesitate. But I do need to see that first part of your essay just dealing with summary. And then the second part you should bring into and talk about evaluation. Like, now that you got the actual message of the story laid out for your reader, can you tell us what you think about that? Can you expand on that? Can you apply it? You don't have to just say it's right or wrong. You might be able to say, hey, I like what was happening there, but it's actually deeper or more. This is an older person here, but this is stuff that happens to young people as well. A lot of young people like to, especially in today's age of digital composition or fabulation. I don't know what the word is. We can craft narratives of ourselves on our social media, right? We can use language that always presents ourselves, for example, as being upbeat, as being loving, as being kind. We can be very hyperbolic about that. It's no longer, oh, nice picture. It's like, oh, you're so beautiful and fantastic, and I love it. Or it could be otherwise. It could be very dark and ugly. So when we go on to our social accounts, don't we just put only the best pictures up, and craft the best story, presenting ourselves as active and interesting and with it? I don't know. I think many of us kind of tend towards that way, right? It just seems kind of like a natural thing to do. So, you can respond to the core message in the evaluation part of the essay, right? Now, because this is an interpretation essay, I would like for the summary to be really not the main point of the essay. The interpretation has to be at least, I would say, I don't like to give formula. I don't like to give templates, but if you want just a basic rule of thumb, make sure your evaluation total is at least as long as the total summary of what you provided. That way, the essay moves more towards being an interpretation essay than a summary essay. Like if all you do is provide the summaries, literal summary, then figurative summary, and then just a couple lines of evaluation, it's really a summary essay with like a postscript, right? I think in terms of textual space, the evaluation needs to be just as long as the summary, if not longer, probably longer, but don't let it be shorter, okay? But let's talk about Walter Mitty. There's a lot of action, a lot of funny scenarios here. I hope you caught on pretty quickly that he's imagining these things, and he's letting his mind wander as he drives his wife into town to do some errands. And in each one of these cases, he's built himself up as being much stronger and better than he is, right? In fact, the story is humorous and, it's a famous story, but most of the stories I give you here are famous. Just for that, just for the humor and the hyperbolic, imagination of this man, war hero, surgeon, boat captain, you can, airplane, war hero. You could read all of that and just see that, it's just so discordant, right? This is a man trying to live his life in his old age. and having trouble doing everything, having trouble just doing basic stuff, having trouble parking his car. He can't park this car. And there's a sense where you don't really want to be honest with yourself about that. You don't want to give up the keys. You don't want to lose the ability to feed yourself. You don't want to lose the ability to live independently. Now, he's not there yet, but he's getting there, right? So he's certainly an older man. And there is sort of a routine that he's in that does not suit him anymore, but he doesn't know how to break out of this, right? So notice that right now when I'm talking about the routine and the loss of independence, my summary of this, my discussion, is moving down to a broader, more general, abstract area. I'm in the in-depth meaning now, right? I'm not talking about the actual, uh, dog pet food that they were buying and the glove that he lost. Those are the details that go into the surface level summary. What you need to provide. You get it out there. That way, your reader has the platform to stand on as they read the rest, and then you both are like figuratively, if not literally, on the same page, with the story. Because remember, your reader is not going to be reading your essay and say, "Oh, I've never read The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, but I really would like to read this essay and understand it, so I better go read The Secret Life of Walter Mitty and then come back and read this." No. They're not going to do that. So, again, assume that you're not writing to me. Assume that you're writing to a magazine or a bulletin or a school periodical or a website, and you're getting paid $40 to write a review on this or something. I would say try to go for 400, but settle for 200, but not 40. Anyway, you got to provide the summary, just the basic literal summary. Like, what is the story about? Okay, who's Mitty? And just give me those details and crunch them down. Okay. Omit a lot of the details. Keep some, of course, because you're gonna have to. But just give me the plot, right, and the main characters. Now, once you get that, you can say, now the story really is about what is it? Aging, dying, losing independence, defense. A defense about that is to start living in an imaginary land. I see people do it. They don't have to be old to do it. They can do it because their careers aren't going where they thought they were going. They're doing it because the home life isn't what they think it is, and they realize that, and they start imagining just to make it through, right? And they craft a mental sphere that they can retreat into as they go to school, as they realize they're not the athlete they thought they were. But I don't know. I mean, that's what I'm getting at. There's a message here of how we handle disappointment and disconnection. How we handle failure, I guess. And I think the story looks into one specific way we handle it. The story is not trying to say this is the end all of all the ways we handle it. It doesn't talk about self-medication, which is another way to handle failure, right? I mean, how many people are out there getting plastered or high, 3 nights out of the week just because that's what they need to do to make it through a life that for them stinks, or it's just not the life they want. Never was the life they want. They don't know how they got in there, but they can't get out. It's too much. It's too just like Mitty's marriage, right? I mean, how do you get out of this place where this woman is so domineering? This partner is so. Oh, how do you get out? Especially when you're older and you might not want to just divorce. And what if all your property's tied up? And so, I think there's a deeper message here that applies to a lot of people in a lot of different situations, and that's what I want you to see. Handle failure. When we handle a diminishing of power, what do we do to compensate if we're not willing to flow with that and accept it? Do we get a little hyperbolic in our uniform, in our dress, and how we talk, and how we try to hang on to our social position, if you will? And at the end, when it's just give me that last cigarette and then let the firing squad do its business, what is that final message? Now again, you don't have to agree with it to see it. You know, you should just be able to start feeling out the contours of the story and the way the specific details work to realize this is a bleak message down here, right? This is a message that is trying to give you a defense against this by saying, here's how one man did it, okay? By constantly building up his confidence through imagined scenarios that he convinces himself is the truth, okay? And by checking out, basically by checking out, you can make it to the end, if you will. But the story never addresses whether there's something after the end. It never just no. It's just that final scene of the firing squad. Okay, so um, what's ironic is that we kind of laugh at that, and the author knows this. That's why we laugh at the story. The story creates interest, maintains it, and rewards it because it's kind of zany. But isn't that really what? Isn't the very act of living that out also kind of zany? Doesn't that help us kind of laugh at that? No. And as we do it, can we both engage in it and also know that we're engaging in it and kind of chuckle to ourselves as we're doing it? Yes, we can. We can. We have that ability to be engaged in an act of posturing and also somehow to have our mind, our self-awareness hover above the act and tell us quietly in the ear, you're posturing. Just like Ptolemy, who came back from a great victory in Rome to the great triumph that the Roman generals had in their golden age. What had one of his captured slaves, or one of his slaves, whispering into his ear as he walked through the triumph of Rome with all the captives in his train and all the glorious and wonderful things he had conquered. The slave was whispering into his ear, "You are mortal, you will die. You are mortal, you also will die," to try to help Ptolemy not get overly what's the word proud. Okay, so there is a sense that you have that ability to be posturing in order to make it through this antagonistic situation you find yourself in. And above that, as you're posturing, you have a little voice telling you, it's okay, have some fun. You're posturing, don't take it too seriously, right? Don't actually believe it. Just do it. And, you can put on the mask, if you will. Now, this isn't necessarily a story about mask wearing, okay? However, this is a story about posturing and about, at least to yourself, right? That things are better than they are, that you're better than they are, that you're, now he takes it to an extreme, but we do this. We do this to some extent in our lives. So, so you might say, well, what's the point of the story? This doesn't seem like a huge message. Well, no, I know, but good literature that has been recognized as being capable and worthy of posterity, right? Of hanging around for a long time, speaks to people. And it speaks to people because it holds up a mirror to ourselves and allows us to know ourselves at a deeper level. You are getting self-knowledge when you see this because you see somehow something applicable in the story that is applicable to your life. And that's the power of good literature. That's the power of good film. That's the power of good music. That little by little, as you collect these unto yourselves, you form a collection of things that in aggregate, together as a whole, are very powerful in teaching you about yourself. I'm not saying one good movie is going to do it, but 100 might. If you know what to watch and how to watch them, and you dedicate yourself to watching them, they're going to give you a lot of self-knowledge and a lot of knowledge of how people work. And you're able to see that. And the more that you're able to look carefully into the mirror, the more you can open yourself up to improvement and to an understanding of how this works. And once you actually understand how it works, all of a sudden you're freed up to be more forgiving and merciful, because you begin to recognize the glories and the foibles of humanity, and you're part of that. You're part of that. This is what erases all sorts of things that might stand as obstacles, and that allows you to distance yourself from others. You got to be able to see yourself in others, and then you realize, whew, I can't really be all that angry with you, or I can't view you as anything other than another version of myself, because we're human. We're not country bound or race bound or intelligence bound in that sense, or time bound. We're bound in our humanness, and what is true about us now has been true about, at a certain deep level, has been true about human culture and community 500 years ago. Okay, so once you're able to get down to that level, you're able to have a lot more fun with your life, because the pressure goes, and you don't have to be trying to be something that you're not. Okay, but you have to be able to get down in there and see it. And it doesn't come to you all wrapped up in a nice package, easy to get, easy to read, easy to. It's you have to dedicate yourself to learning through text, and it can't be something that's tied to college. I know that sometimes maybe you run into teachers that can give you little nuggets of wisdom, but you have to be developing patterns of lifelong learning through great books, movies, songs, series, texts, content that are available to you through the streaming services, through the public library, right? And the way they provide movies, podcasts, books, magazine articles, newspaper, all of this to you. And you gotta allow yourself time in that land, the land of the good text. And you got to be able to see through the thing to the heart that is there for you in that film, or that miniseries, or whatever, that short story, or that poem, or that music, that song. You got to be able to see what it's really about, and that's another part of your toolkit or another part of the puzzle that you're building. It's another piece, and eventually, when you get enough of these pieces, you see them connecting, and you see this picture coming out. And the picture is you. And I just don't know how you're really going to get self-knowledge until you do this. Right? Now, you can also get it another way. You can get it by straight-up experience, but experience that tests your courage and your confidence. Unfortunately, in today's modern age, our young people, we've completely almost shut that down for you by saying you got to go to high school, and then after high school, you got to go to college, and then after college, you got to get a job. Hey, where's your gap year? Hey, when are you traveling to other countries? Hey, how about trying to make it as a sailor for 3 months? How about I don't know, hike the Pacific Rim? I don't know, do something, right? That's going to test you and challenge you and almost break you, right? It's going to give you stories that as your life grows, those stories grow, and more. You're going to see them grow in value as they become semantic centers around what you build. You craft your philosophy of life, but you're not getting these stories because you're just so incredibly busy trying to get a degree and work a job. And is it your fault, or is it the fault? I mean, I don't know. I don't want to place fault anywhere, but it seems like we make it incredibly hard, for the emerging adult to do what I think they need to do. And if you're not going to go have the adventure, then learn how to see it through the text that people craft around it. You'll be able to get it that way as well. So just keep at this, and just realize that learning how to interpret things and to see the aesthetic, the art, the deeper meanings behind something. And I want to just leave that something there as the word, something. All right. That, because it could be an experience, it could be an art show that you go to, it could be a play you see, it could be a sporting event, and all of a sudden you see the bigger picture, what's really happening on the field. It could be movies, songs, I don't know, but you got to be able to see the deeper stuff that's happening around the surface, the material surface that forms the fabric of your life, the nuts and bolts of your life, if you will. So I hope this is helpful. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it.